Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. It's Wednesday, the 1st of July. Wow, blimey. Where did June go, Duncan? Someone stole June,
I
replaced it
know
with a whole new month.
it's absolutely nuts how it's flying in at the moment. So,
Certainly
ev-
is, mate. It gets
everything.
fast. It gets faster the older you get. I have to warn you about this. Look at
Oh,
you in your swanky new office.
ooh, swanky, which Kelly has made me to get me away from her. So that's why I've been done like
This
this.
is this is version one. It's kind of work in progress, but looking good.
Yeah, exactly. This has only been set up in the last hour or so. So it's definitely
Wow.
a work in progress, and we will try and get it fixed. I'm just trying to get the angles and all right, so you don't see
That's
us
it. So
all.
we seeing up your nostrils there. It's a beautiful thing.
Yep, see that.
Yeah. So it's Rock Around the Clock, folks. Thanks for joining us Wednesday night. Duncan is going to be my permanent co-host on Rock Around the Clock. It's going to be from now on. If Stadia Rocks live on a Sunday is our light show for people that obviously new to Stadia or very casual and don't necessarily follow the news. Rock Around the Clock is going to be a little bit more of a deep dive, and of course it follows typically when we get pro drops as we have today, or any news that's released on a Tuesday. So it's quite a good time of the week to just go through what's happening in the wonderful world of Stadia and cloud gaming. So welcome to Rock Around the Clock, Mark 3. And we've got a fair old amount to talk about today, Duncan, haven't we?
Yeah,
Got a lot to cover off.
yep,
Before we do that, if folks, if you could just drop us a like, and obviously if you're new to the show, subscribe, tick that little bell, and then you will be notified. We go live every Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock. And as I've just mentioned, Stadia Rocks Live, which is the light baby brother for Rock Around the Clock on a Sunday morning. So let's kick right off. Let's kick it right off. Let's get straight to the news, which today is, of course, as I've just suggested, that the new pro games, the 1st of July games launched today. Remind us, Duncan, what they were.
we have 4 games joining us on the Pro Library this week, or this month even. It's Creata, Monster Boy, and the Cursed Kingdom, Steamworld Dig, and lastly West of Loathing. So we're getting 4 games this month, and a couple of games have dropped off this month as well. And all the S's and Spitlings, Serious Sam, and there's stacks on stacks and stacks have left us as well.
So we had 18, we've gained 4, and we've lost how many? 3. Yeah.
Or depending how many you count Serious Sam as, because that was the trilogy.
Of course it was. Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. So yeah, these are actually really good games. Now I got up very, very early this morning to actually play a bit of The Last of Us 2. And then I realized that we were only an hour away from the pro games launching. And there was an amazing event on YouTube, which was a countdown from Unit 2 Games, who were the developers of Creata. And it was really exciting, actually. The chat was brimming. There was a load of people. They were really excited. Obviously, this is their baby. But it was just great community. You know, it was just brilliant to see. I think these guys, more than possibly anyone else that's brought on new games to Stadia, you know, they just absolutely want to be in the thick of it. And it was great to see. And that all launched without any hitches. They jumped straight into some games. I popped in quickly into one of the hubs, and it was just amazing to see. You know, you may or may not know this chat, but Duncan and I, as a lot of content creators, have access to Creata over the last week. So every time we've gone into the hub, there's literally been either just yourself or one other individual. So to go in today and see a ton of people, it's been a huge successful launch for them, and I'm really, really pleased because they do really care. So that was excellent. Also had a look at what else? I have a look at. I had a look at West of Loathing. what a great game that is. I mean, I know we were kind of warned, and people said, look, you know what? I know it looks rubbish. I know it looks like it's hand drawn and not great, but don't judge it by the cover because actually it's really good. And I have to say, it's probably one of my favorites that we've got for a long time. It's just really good fun. And yes, of course, it's hand-drawn graphics, but that's part of the charm. And it is 60 frames per second. I mean, it's quite smooth as butter, as they say, but great humor, great fun. It's a kind of text-based RPG, I guess. But that's a really good game. Haven't played SteamWorld Dig yet, haven't had a chance, but also played Monster Boy. Now that's interesting because that is definitely the game that I thought I would like the least, because I'm not a huge lover of that kind of anime manga look. It's just not my thing. So I was a little bit prejudiced going in, but I have to say it was another great game. It's a platformer, accessible. It was good fun. I absolutely enjoyed it. So I'm actually really pleased with the crop of games that we've got this week, Duncan.
Yep, so am I. It's I think we're going to have a lot of surprises in there. I have played and completed SteamWorld Dig on Stadia, and it's well worth playing. It's good fun. Boss level, in boss level a bit wonky, but bar that, it's brilliant up until then. I really enjoyed it. I've had a quick 5 minutes in Monster Boy. I'm liking to look at that. I've seen a bit of Brian's stream on Club Stadia, and he was enjoying that as well. Creator, as
Good.
if you've seen, as you've talked about, we got a bit of early access. It has a massive potential, and the guys who have made that is absolutely amazing. They're all over Twitter, they're all over everywhere, trying to help people if they've got any issues. They're out there trying to get it sorted.
I think they are really showing the way, and they're and I know that they're a reasonable sized business, but they're a tiny studio. There's only I think there's less than 40 of them in total, and when you compare that to the hundreds, in some cases thousands of devs that are involved in some of the bigger AAA titles, and half of them can't even be bothered to send out a tweet. And these guys are everywhere. If there's an issue, they're all over it. If they hear about a bug, they acknowledge it, they embrace it, they throw it straight in to get it fixed. I think it's great, and I absolutely wish Unit 2 all the best luck in the world with this, because I think obviously showing you Monster Boy, not quite what we're talking about, but there it is. But it is a really good game, and they absolutely deserve everything they get for this. Now, you played a bit of Crater in the last week, haven't you? I think you've not had as much time with it as you'd like.
No, I do want to spend a bit more time with it. I got the code on Friday for it, and I spent a good number of hours into it. It's a game, the more you spend with it, the better and you will get. And
yes.
So I'm really looking forward to what people are going to create over the next number of weeks and months, because the more time people spend with it, the more time they put into it, the better the games are going to be.
100%.
There's already a couple of cracking wee games out there. One of can't say his name. Marchief has got his.
Marchief, yeah, Martin.
Yeah, he has got his game.
Cloud Gaming Extreme. He's actually got a show on at 9:00 tonight, folks. So when we're finished, you know where to go. Interestingly, literally, I mean, the games went live at 8 a.m. British summertime BST, and we all jumped into the hub, and it was hey, and emotes and dances and stuff. 5 minutes later, the dev said, "Oh my word, somebody's just published a game." 5 minutes in. And they said it's actually quite a decent game. So it took them 5 minutes to launch in, jump in, and create a game. Now, you and I have used it. It takes a heck of a lot longer than that. So you have to assume it was using one of the pre-built templates. It probably just added a little bit of glitz to it. But, you can literally jump in and create something using the basic tools without being massively technical, or you can get really deep And if you've got any kind of programming background, I think you're going to be so at home with this app. And I think that's one of the things. It kind of works at many levels. If you just want to play some games and you don't want to build anything, help yourself. There's a load. If you're kind of just want to explore and create something beautiful and, maybe walk around within it, show your friends what you've done, built a scale model of the Eiffel Tower or something, you can do that. But if you want to create a really good game, a battle royale, or, anything that you can imagine, there's that ability as well. So yeah, fingers crossed. It's early days. It's clearly got some they've found a few little glitches and things, but they're fixing them. I've got complete faith in these guys. So there you go. There's your pro games for this week. Just remind me, are all of these available on Stadia if you don't have the pro account to purchase?
Yeah, all these games are. Creator is, I think, £30 if you're going to buy it by itself. And the other games, I think, are on there. I haven't seen the prices because unfortunately I'm a pro member and it doesn't show up until
I know you say. Martin, Happy Cloud Gamer, asks a question here, Duncan. He says, will we see Crater have a paywall in the future? You know a bit about this, don't you?
It's already got a paywall. You either have to buy it or you have to be a member of Pro. So yes, there is a paywall there. It may change in the future. They might lower it and they might increase it. More likely is they're going to lower it. We don't know how long it's going to be a pro game for. This could be a long-term pro game like with a Destiny, where it could be there for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
But it is £30, $40 mark.
That's not what I would consider a paywall, I suppose. I mean, that's a payable version of it if you don't have the pro. And I know that there are ramped versions, aren't there? So we as content creators were very lucky. We got key codes for the deluxe version, which is the top end version. But in terms of unlocking features for money, which is what I kind of consider paywall to be, or buying costumes in the kind of Fortnite style, I'm not sure at this moment in time. I mean, they've got masses of potential to do that, of course, because you could see them selling new shapes, meshes, or textures, voxels, for example, scripts. There's the potential to sell on those assets. My gut feeling is seeing how they've worked with the community. I think they're a fairly ethical business. I don't think that's uppermost in their minds right now. In terms of its exclusivity to Stadia, they haven't ruled out that it could show up on another platform, but they've equally said that they haven't looked at it at all. They've not got a PC version waiting in the wings. It's something that they will review over time. So it's certainly going to be on Stadia for the foreseeable future exclusively. Who knows? I mean, they may develop a similar version of it for PC, but not necessarily called Crater. So yeah, I don't think that's anything that we need to worry about for the foreseeable future. But no, there's some great pro games, folks. And if you haven't claimed them, don't worry. They're there for a while. But enjoy them when you do. I'm sure you'll enjoy all of those games.
Yeah. I just want to add, if you're talking about paywall to actual games, no, after you've got Creator, I don't think there is going to be any other paywall on top of that at all.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Okie dokie. So next up, I'll just take that down a second. We've got wireless controllers on Android mobile devices. This was big news. We kind of knew it was coming, but nonetheless, it's great to see it happen, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just trying to fix my light there to make it less on my face. This was hinted at in the APKs and whatnot. So yeah, this was on the card for a long time, and finally it has arrived. Yeah. So just remember, it is just the Stadia controller at this moment in time. So I don't think the other controllers will be too far off. Just remember, it is just the Stadia controller.
Okay, so at the moment we can use the Stadia controller wirelessly, but if we want to use our PlayStation or Xbox or other flavor, we'd still have to use the wire in the short term.
Yeah, it appears to be
Okay,
that way at the moment. But
gotcha.
I don't think it's going to be that far off now.
Okay.
I guess it's
How,
another baby step.
and this is across the board. So I think it was last week or the week before, they said, you can now play Stadia on any Android device. And then this week they've said, and now you can play wirelessly with your Stadia controller on any Android device, which is great news, isn't it? Oh, there he's back.
Yeah, yeah.
We've lost you. You're back.
I'm still trying to still trying to get used to this new
With your new space. Yeah, yeah.
With my new space.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they started off with all Android phones now. They've opened it up to this, and this is amazing news because this is just going to expand the market out much further because people are more places you've got to play. You're more likely you're going to play.
It's huge, and I saw some people. I haven't tried it myself yet, but I know that people that have used just shut Siri down there. People that have used the wireless controller said it's perfect. It's absolutely seamless. And of course, what's really good news if you don't have a controller, guess what? They've dropped the price. So for a limited time, though, isn't it? It's not forever.
It's not forever. It's I think it's another couple of days to go on this. So
okay.
if you're looking at another controller now, is the time to go pick it up. And this is on top of them dropping the price of the Premier Edition as well. So
yes,
you've got a choice here. Personally, I would still go for the Premier Edition for the extra 40 quid. You get the Chromecast Ultra.
That's That's a really good shout, because all they're giving you here anyway is £5.90, which it's nice, but we're not talking 50% or anything here, are we? Whereas if you get the Premier, you get the CCU, you get the. Do you still only get 1 month of Stadia Pro with the, or is that longer now?
No, it's just the 1 month. That used to be longer, but they've reduced it down. So gotcha. what they've reduced it by. The price is how many months you basically use it for. So that makes any sort of sense. They reduced it for about 15 to £20. So
gotcha.
They've made it cheaper by removing a couple of months.
Gotcha. So fill your boots, folks, before they remove that offer. Next up, we have State Share in Monster Boy. Now, just going back to our pro games for this very day. You brought this to my attention fairly early on, but I know it wasn't you that discovered it. But you discovered, or someone discovered, that within Monster Boy is the literal interpretation of State Share, as in what we were told back in the day we would see. Just explain to people what that literally means in this case, Duncan.
What it looks like it's going to mean in this case is you'll be able to share your state. Your state is your actual, where you are in that game, what's your save point. So that means you'll be able to say, Rokk, I'm stuck at this part. Can you get past this part? And you send off the link. Absolutely everything what you've got in your save game is passed on to someone else to try that out. To actually show this, you actually push up. And there we go.
Oh, there it is. So it's this state share.
Right.
Yeah. And in essence, it means that I can decide that the next save that I make, or a current game point, if I save it as a state share, and that will be wherever I am in the game, whatever my assets, whatever I've gathered, my points, my stars, whatever, I can save this and then somehow give it to you so that you can play that point in the game in your copy of Monster Boy. Exactly. Monster Boy. And what I love about that is, and I'm assuming this would work, is that if I was stuck in any game that had state share, but I happen to know that you're an absolute demon in Monster Boy, I could create my state share, my position, give it to you so that you could get me through that level. You could then save it as a state share and give it back to me so I can carry on playing from that point.
Yep, that could be one of the functions of it, which is absolutely nuts if you think about it. It's just creating situation where what people used to do before in time. You go back to the PlayStation 2 days or the PlayStation days, you had your wee memory cards. It's just basically like that, but you're just doing it all through the cloud now and not having to worry. There's so many possibilities of this going
Yeah.
forward. If you've played like a roguelike, you could be playing the same state as your favorite streamer, and you'll be
Yeah.
playing the same game and making different moves to them, but you're
Yeah.
actually still playing the same version. It's just gonna
It's
open up so
interesting,
much.
isn't it? I know in the wonderful wide world of Destiny, there was a back in the day. There's a thing in multiplayer called I forgot what it's called, something of Orion. And he rode up. Anyway, it was a multiplayer, three people thing on a Friday night. It'll come to me in a second, or chat will remind me. But it was incredibly difficult, so only the really, really good elite people could do it. Trials of Osiris. Thank you, Duncan. The Trials of Osiris. So I did do it, but only as sat in somebody's backpack. But it occurs to me that because what happened is that people actually, you could actually go to their websites and they would charge you to come into your game and carry you through your 6 or whatever it was games that you had to win in order to get to the end. So it became like a little mini ecosystem. And it occurs to me that you could almost imagine people saying the same thing on eBay. You know, if you're stuck in any of these games, state share, pay me $5. And then give me your state share and I'll fix it for you and send it back again. It could happen, right?
It could happen. The only thing is just to remember when you're actually playing the games which have state share enabled, the developers have the freedom to how liberal they are with the
How
state
it's going to be,
shares.
right. And that is something that's important when we look at Crater, isn't it? Because we've also got the same feature in Crater, but it's implemented in a different way, purely based on how the developers wanted it to be implemented. Can you just explain the difference?
Okay, with Creative, you're sharing basically your multiplayer link and your actual game further on. So that's two separate things. The first one is if you're playing on Creator and you want someone else to come in and help you, you can
Mm-hmm.
send them a link and they will jump straight into your game and start editing with you, etc. Uh, if you want to kill that, just say it becomes viral and people just start firing the link off to other
Mm-hmm.
people, you can kill that link down. So it stop people going in.
Right.
The other one is you can actually share your game, so you can get a wee link to your game, and away you go. You can try my game at this link. So they are sort of. This is different to the Monster Boy
Yes.
version of it, and I think you've got a point to raise about this.
Well, it just occurred to me that although I get that the basic toolbox that they're using is the same, and it's down to them how they implement it, the ways that they have separately implemented it almost requires it to be called something different. You know, for me, what you're doing with Crater is you're inviting people to share the game with you, whereas with Monster World, you're inviting them to save that point in the game, the state at that point in the game. So state share kind of works for Monster Boy, but it kind of doesn't work for Crater, whereas game share works for Crater. Now, I know, to be honest, I don't think that. Well, we saw the words state share used in Monster Boy. I was about to say, I don't know that Google particularly expected people to use those words other than how they described them, but we've seen them used there. I can't remember in Crater what phrase. I don't think they use the phrase state share. I think they call it link share or something. So I think there just needs to be some consistency. And if it's because it becomes a promotional thing, people can say, oh, this game's got state share. You go, wow, brilliant. And you go there and realize it's another implementation. It's not the same implementation. So, you know, you become disappointed because I can't actually share my save point with you, Duncan. They've implemented it in a completely different way. So for me, it just feels like they ought to differentiate them, if only because I'm a bear of simple mind, hard of thinking.
Yeah,
I need simple things in my life.
Yeah, I think they realised that pretty early on with the creative one, and then started to back away from maybe the state share. It's more about sharing your links because there is a confusion over that. Because the
Okay.
way state share was explained last year, again, this could be all different now. Was completely different to what was there. But
Okay.
being able to just give a short version of your code to get people into the game is an amazing feature anyway. So
Yeah.
we sort of use that on a Friday night during our stream just to get that out there for people to join the servers.
Mm.
Well, I think that the name change needs to be looked at to make it a bit clearer on what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't want to labour the point because it's amazing to have the feature. It just occurred to me this morning because, I thought, well, why they're not the same thing. They may have the same, they may be taken from the same toolbox, and they may be up to the developer to implement it the way they want to. But minor point. Anyway, these are great games, and it's great to see those features. Now, while we've still got this screen up, the next thing we were going to have a quick look at, which again has come to light just this week, is that we can now see actual game stats within Stadia. And if you're not familiar with this, people, I'll show you how it works. So essentially, you click on the your friends icon, which is where it says 27 up there, 27 people online, and then you click on your avatar. Then you come down to achievements. This isn't exactly obvious, but it's worth knowing. You come down to achievements, and then you see all your games. And now at this moment in time, all you're seeing is what we've always seen before, which is how many achievements within each game you've achieved. Obviously, these are all new games, so not bad out of Creator, though. I'm really halfway there. However, if you click again, now it gets interesting. So now we can see total play time, in this case for Creator, 10 hours. Hours spent creating. You see each implementation, each developer can implement what stats they want you to see. So in the case of Creator, it says how many hours I've spent creating, how many hours I've spent playing, and what level I've reached, which is brilliant. If I go back up again, let's have a look at Destiny, for example. Now, Destiny's, again, how many hours I've played, what my character power is for whichever character I left the game in. I was actually last time I played, I was leveling up one of my lower characters, so it's a bit lower than that. Character age in years, so how many years that character's actually been played, and the character level that it's achieved. So a different set of stats based on the game. All right. So I think that's a really interesting. I mean, if nothing other than to see how many hours you've played, and it was quite funny to see people on Twitter kind of, well, I've played 180 hours in this game, and well, I can beat you. I've done 6,500 hours. It's kind of trump cards thing going on, which is really cool. So that's new, and that's really useful. Well, it's not. It's just interesting, but it's good to see it. It's good to see it rolled out, isn't it?
Yeah, but as I think, just as you were describing that there, I think we are in line for a UI change just to make things a bit clearer. And
Yes.
I think that may be announced at the Connected because of anybody who has been a Stadia user from the start now, I think things are starting to get a bit convoluted if you're looking for games and
Absolutely. I mean, I've got. I mean, this to be fair is the web browser implementation of the UI, which is easy. I think Chase in the chat made a point about saying how this implementation of the UI across all devices differs and it needs unification. And to be fair, it's probably easier, if anything, on the browser. But of course, on the Chromecast, it's one horizontal bar, which is just a scroll and a scroll and a scroll and a scroll, and on it goes and on it goes and on it goes. And that needs to be looked at. But as you rightly said, I think that's definitely on the cards, and we should see that within the next 2 weeks, hopefully, or at least announcement within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think we're going to get an announcement at least that they're going to be looking at that, because we're still missing some things like in the Chromecast as well. We can't buy games there, but there is always the signs that things are just around the corner, and things seem to be getting pushed out a lot quicker now. Every week we're getting new features and everything, but it's really really interesting how things are going here. Stadia over the last, I would say, month or two, features wise, they've just been banging them out, bang, 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 bang.
Mm.
And I think we're getting to the point where we're going to get a big one in front of our faces with the
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It has to come, because otherwise, I think it's just all going to get a little bit hard to use. So, just next up on our little list, Duncan, something that you spotted today, which is that Borderlands 2, and not just any old Borderlands 2, Borderlands 2 Game of the Year could be coming to Stadia.
Yep, this is another good sign that the Borderlands 2 Game of the Year edition is coming to Stadia. This wasn't just some random one going out there. The Xbox version and the PlayStation version of the game is announced, so it looks like they're maybe splitting off the package, which included the pre-sequel. So you'll be previously you could buy the Borderlands the pre-sequel and Borderlands 2 Game of the Year together as a package. So it looks like they're maybe just splitting them off. And Stadia being mentioned here is a really good sign. It doesn't mean 100,000,000% it is coming, but it's a high possibility now of it coming. So, and everybody seems to love Borderlands 2, so it's just another good game to get.
It was, yeah. I mean, I've got Borderlands 3 and 2, and 2 still remains my favorite in the franchise. And I think I've said to you before, I'm not even sure why, and I don't know whether it's because it's just of its time and it kind of came out pre-Destiny, and it was just a great fun game. And I felt that Borderlands 3 just didn't move things enough forward for me. That was it, really. I know I'm in a minority because it's a much loved game, and it is a huge achievement. So, but Borderlands 2 excites me because I love Borderlands 2, and yeah, that would be an absolute blast to get that. And who knows, particularly if it's been remastered in some way, as tends to be the case if stuff comes to Stadia, doesn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets a wee bump in specs for us. We hopefully 4K 60 FPS.
Yeah, that would be something else. That would be amazing. Also launched yesterday was Just Shapes and Beats. Now, we knew this was coming from a while back. We just didn't know when. So it was a shadow drop. It just dropped yesterday. I doubt you've had a chance to look at it, have you? Because I know you've been uber busy over the last couple of days.
I haven't had a chance to pick this
No.
up yet, but I have got my eye on it, and I am actually tempted to pick this up at some stage. It's just when, because it looks really interesting, and our Sonny at now Sonny Cloud Gaming, because he's had a wee rebrand there, was raving about this game, and it's one of his favorite games on the platform. So I am actually looking forward to giving this a try whenever I get a chance to.
I watched Jem's review of it earlier today, actually, which was really good. If you're still in the chat, Jem, I did tell you that on your comment. I thought it was an excellent video, and I have to say, I was really impressed, not just with Jem's review, but it looks a great game. Jem made the point of saying, and I thought it was a good one, that it very much looks suited to use it on a mobile device. So playing the game on your Android device with a wireless controller or otherwise could be perfect. And I think I've said this anyway recently, you can see a definite strategy arriving here with Stadia. They are absolutely trying to bring in top rate games that would work on any screen. So you can play this quite happily on a browser, on a TV with the old Chromecast Ultra, or of course it works perfectly well on a mobile device as well. So there's a definite sort of thought process, I think, that they go through when they look at what games they want to bring to Stadia, in as much as, will we alienate anybody that's only using a mobile device, or but maybe also wants to use it on their television, and this works perfectly in that space.
Yeah, it does. Another strategy I see them using for going down the strategy route is co-op games. There seems to be a massive
Yep.
push towards co-op games or multiplayer games, but especially co-op. I think this game as well is another co-op game. It's just trying to get people involved. Most of the games we are getting are some sort of co-op, and the ones which are the star ones, which are Stadia is really pushing, are 100% co-op. We've had Created today, we had Wave Break last week, we had Get Packed, we had Spitlings. These games here are ones which they are pushing for everybody to come in and join together. Quick blast games. You're in there for a couple of minutes and out again. Games on your phone, the games you can just pick up and go.
Yeah.
We'll still get the big games like the Red Dead Redemptions and other things, but there does seem to be a clear strategy on pick up and go games which you can play on your phone, 2 minutes, 3 minutes around sort of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And of course, we know that they are we know that there is obviously the attempt to provide games that work on all screens, but of course the other objective of Google's is to bring cloud gaming to territories that currently just don't get access to games because they don't necessarily have the equipment. So mobile is huge, as we know, in Asia and Africa, in the Middle East. I watched the other day. I watched this young lad in I think it was India, and certainly in that part of the world, playing Fortnite on his mobile phone, connected by a wire to the broadband so that he could stream it. And he was just absolutely astonishingly good. I mean, he had a huge subscriber base, and he was getting loads of money through the old monetization and everything, and deservedly so. But I think this is the thing, when you go to huge parts of the world, they don't have televisions with CCUs or expensive PCs or even cheap PCs, because as we know, Stadia will run on just about anything. They're all about the mobiles. So providing games like Just Shapes and Beats or West of Loathing, or and to be fair, any of the games today, with the exception of maybe creating on Creator, but certainly playing the games that come with it, all of them will work absolutely fine on any shape or size of screen, and that appeals to the attempt by Google to reach those mass markets that maybe have been abandoned through, while we're going on talking about our next gen consoles, those guys, they haven't got access to that. So for them to have access to next gen technology on their mobile devices is just a massive opportunity.
It really is, and I'm expecting during the Connect in a couple of weeks. It's 2 weeks today, basically.
Yeah, literally 14 days. Yep.
And I'm expecting that they're going to announce some new territories, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get maybe India involved there, because we know Microsoft are going after India and the Asian market. I do think we could see Stadia expand there.
I think it's inevitable. It has to come sooner than later. We're at 14 territories in total right now, which I know some of those are fairly huge. I mean, most of Europe, and obviously the whole of North America. But a lot of South America, I don't, hasn't got Stadia. Large territories like Russia doesn't have Stadia, and I know there'll be some licensing issues, and so they're not going to be able to roll out globally for some time. But certainly there are lots of territories. I think I'm right in saying that you can get it in Spain, but you can't get it in Portugal, which is bizarre, but for whatever reason.
And if you want to get even more wackier, you can play in any EU country because it's under the European model. So
right.
If any of the European countries which aren't actually supported, you can actually, if you go on holiday there from the UK, you can actually still play Stadia there.
Yeah, it's a sore point, mate. Look, we're not over it yet. We're not going to be a European. We're not going to be a European member for much longer.
No comment. I'm not going down the political
And I do,
way.
and I do fear we're about to crash out. But that's a whole other story and a whole other show.
Yeah, it's just a general point was, yeah, you can actually, if you're in an EU country, I will rephrase that.
Yes.
If you're in an EU country, you can still play in the other countries, but you can't actually subscribe if you're in an unsupported country, but you can actually still use it if you're. It's just one of them.
Now, talking about future events, and we'll come back on the Connect in a second, but next week, I think it's next week, certainly the next 8 days, or maybe the week after, we have the Google Home event. Now, what's interesting about this, Duncan, is, and I'll just pull this out a little bit because we're hiding. This is the official page, I think, for the Google Home event. Now, this is largely aimed at things like Alexa and Google lights and things. I'm not massively into that stuff, but here's the key. Here's the important thing. We can, looking at this graphic in the corner here, let's just break this down. We've got a new Android TV implementation on that television there. We've got the new Android TV remote control that we've been seeing snippets and photos of around the place. And look at what's over there behind that countdown clock. Oh, that looks suspiciously like a Stadia controller. This is all pointing, isn't it, to the release of what's codenamed Sabrina, which is the update to Android TV and, of course, our favorite Chromecast device.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you've been following the Sabrina story a lot more than myself. Yeah, it seems to be a big update coming. Android TV is getting a look at, and we've already seen over the last couple of months there seems a Stadia app is semi-working in the Android TV as well. What I'm interested in, the wee headphones in the back, is that just to play music one, or will we be getting a proper thing of headphones, which you would hope would be supported with Stadia as well? Because that's one feature.
It's a very interesting point, given that there's no other reason to show headphones. I mean, we've got Alexa. Is it Alexa? No, it's Google Assistant. Sorry, I'm getting my assistants mixed up here. They've got the Google Assistant box thing in the corner. Now, you wouldn't use headphones for that because it's a speaker. And those headphones are not on an individual's head. They're very much a feature, aren't they? So, I think you're onto, I mean, we probably getting ahead of ourselves a tad, but you're right to question that. Why would they be making a big thing? There's also, it has to say as well, if you look behind the controller, we've got what look like radiating waves. Now, of course, networks, Wi-Fi, broadband, etc. That's there's some big clues in this very simple illustration, and we know, well, in fact, we're not alone, because other tech mags have said that they are hearing that Sabrina, it won't be called Sabrina, it'll be the Google Android Home something, but it'll be coming out next week. Now, why is that important? It's important because we know the tech, that the specs that have already leaked for it have a very much support 4K 60 frames per second, which is perfect for Stadia. Now, of course, the Chromecast Ultra does that now, but the idea behind this device is that it will be more like an Amazon Fire Stick or an Apple TV box. It'll go beyond purely casting, which you currently do, of course. If you've got a Chromecast, you open up your phone, you find Netflix, and you cast it to the device, and it essentially then streams it to your TV. This will have a proper interface, which means that you can go along and, oh, what's this? There's an icon for something called Stadia. What happens if I click this? Boom, and you're in. And it'll have those features and functions built in. And it'll be fascinating to see how it's implemented. I think I think a lot of people, including Google themselves, are realizing that one of the impediments to people trying Stadia is we all know it's free, but I've still got to give you my credit card details before you let me try it. And I think they need to get beyond that. They need to sell the fact that Pro is better, but they need to let you try it without, because people are rightly so, well, I could put my card details in, but I'll probably forget in a month. And, that's kind of how these guys work, isn't it? So to be able to give it a go and not have to pay, and we know that we can play games for 2 hours and get a refund. So there's lots of things that Google could do down that road. And I suspect if they roll an app out that lives within a device that you haven't necessarily bought it for Stadia to play Stadia, you just get it home, you plug it in. Oh, look, it's got Netflix and it's got Apple, it's got something else, and it's got Stadia. And then you can literally jump in and do some stuff, because that's how the Amazon Prime app is going to work. So, I think something along those lines is going to be fascinating to see.
Yes, exactly. And what I'm interested in, I've just had a quick double check in that, as I'm hoping it has Bluetooth support.
Yes.
Because that will bring off another massive barrier for people to actually play it on the TV. I'm happy to have a Stadia controller if they can get rid of having to have a Stadia controller tied to it. Obviously, they'll be promoting to say Stadia controller is the best way to play. You get all these extra features, but actually having been able just to link up an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller or whatever controller there is, that's going to open up the opportunities even further.
Yeah.
For me, this sort of device is exactly what I would prefer. I actually like having an interface to give up the other apps, because I hate, believe it or not, I actually hate going to my phone and then laying up things on YouTube. I prefer the actual proper sort of interface and having the choice and clicking.
Yeah, absolutely right. And of course, this is purely speculation, Duncan. It's just popped into my head because it's kind of how my little brain works. One of the things you can't currently do, of course, with the CCU is play Stadia with anything but a Stadia controller. What we know is when Sabrina launches, though, it launches with a new remote control. What if the elements required for the controller are built into the remote control? So you actually plug your PS4 controller into the remote control, and the remote control sends the signal through to the router so that you can then play on your TV with any remote control. Would you buy that for 80 quid?
I would buy that for 80 quid just for the interface, to tell you the truth. Never mind the controller. I'm a simple man. A lot of the time there, you've got this in camera and it can come back and bite me in the backside. But I am very simple. I just like things nice and easy. You don't have to worry about it. And having the remote there, even if you tie it to the other things, that sounds absolutely dead on. But actually having the full proper system on the TV, I think this could be a really interesting thing.
Well, if you think about it, they have to do something, because if you've got your Google Home Android TV device, codename Sabrina Home, and you've got it for Netflix and YouTube, and you've heard it's got this amazing quality 4K, the codec's brilliant, it rivals Amazon. So you were down at your local hardware store and you pick one up, and then you see it says Stadia. Well, if you click it and then it says, thank you, but you need a Google Stadia controller, they've kind of just blown themselves in the foot, haven't they? So they have to have a way that you can experience through the new device on your television without having to then go to Google and order an 80 quid or a 60 quid device and have it sent through. So it seems obvious to me, if you're providing a remote control, and we know, for example, that remote control has been patented. Now, a remote control is a remote control, right? I mean, what's there to patent unless there's some new tech in it? And my guess is the ability to interface with any remote control so that you can play Stadia without needing the Google Stadia controller. You've heard it here first, folks.
Sounds a very interesting proposition.
I would never proposition you on a Wednesday evening, Duncan. You know this.
Yes, it's only on Friday you would do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so yeah, this could open up the more opportunities for them going forward. And if they start dumping the, not dumping is wrong, if they start encouraging people to move over to this instead of the Chromecast,
Yep.
it could really accelerate
Yep.
things going forward. The interesting thing to fall like could actually come with this, the Premier editions could start going away in a couple of months, and this could be the
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
one thing. Maybe that's why there's a price cut at the moment, just to
Yeah.
try and ship them out a bit more.
I think that in order for them to move to mass, they've got to move away from the dedicated hardware. It just has to happen. Because otherwise it's not going to get the mass take up in those territories that we just mentioned. Yes, you can play it on your phone and that's fine. But you know, the majority where they're going to get in the West, people that aren't already gaming are people that don't have consoles and don't have PCs, and they might have phones, but they probably don't game on them. It's the television, so they've got to get beyond the controller, and I think this maybe is going to be the gateway for that. It'll be fascinating. So the event is on the 8th of July, which is 8 days from today. So that will be a Thursday of next week, I'm guessing, if my maths are any good. And that's going to be another one of these stay-at-home jobs, isn't it?
Yep, it's going to be another stay at the home.
Yep.
I'm just going to throw this out here, just to get people thinking a wee bit. We had the Apple conference last week, and they are making big plays in the gaming now as well. They're allowing Bluetooth keyboards, mice, Xbox controllers, Elite controllers. They seem to be realizing that gaming is actually a big thing, so we might actually see something with Apple as well. So I don't think it's a coincidence that both companies are moving that way. So that is just something to keep an eye on as well.
There's a definite convergence, and I think you know, lots of people, not just me, have said that one of the things that they announced with, I mean, it was a developers conference, so you know, they're telling you stuff a little bit like the very first time that we ever found out about Stadia. It was aimed at developers, so you know, we kind of got a techie glimpse. But the Apple Developers Conference essentially says, look, we've got, as always, the new OS X, which is actually going to be OS 11, so they'll be dropping the X from the next one, and the iOS update will be, you know, around fall, so it's usually around October time. But the key thing is that someone spotted that they will be at last embracing the codec, V9 codec, that of course is what now runs in our Chrome browser, to make it work in, you know, pretty much anywhere on the Android devices. So the theory goes that from the run out of the new iOS in October, we should finally get an implementation of Stadia that runs on Apple devices. Fingers crossed. And that one is a saying, not just me saying this, lots of people are saying that. So we'll hopefully see that coming as well, at least this year. So, you know, so far there's a heck of a lot that's going to be happening in our backyard before we get to Santa in December, which is all good. Great stuff. Sorry, Duncan.
I'm just going to say, it is a really exciting lead up until when Santa comes this year. We've got all the presents to open with the new consoles, the new games. It's going to be nuts. And what I'm actually liking is every single game now basically coming out now, crossplay. So again, it's just feeding into everybody is just coming together now, and it's platforms are starting to matter.
Yes. That for me, if anything, I mean, this year will be remembered in history for so many things, mostly, sadly, not the right things that we'd like to remember. But purely from gaming, I think this will be the year that we look back and say everything started to come together. You know, gamers started to come together, communities came together. Gaming in itself united a world that had nothing else to do. And most importantly, we've seen that big studios are finally saying enough to the big console boys. We're going to implement cross-platform and cross-play because it's what gamers want, and they're breaking down the barriers. It's almost like the end of the Berlin Wall. I mean, to be maybe a little bit dramatic with my metaphors, but we're starting to see that come to place this year. So for me, I think if we can take any positives away, it's really the year where gaming came into its own, became a global, cross-platform, cross-borders, cross-cultural enjoyment.
Exactly.
Getting all philosophical here, mate. I'm starting to tear up.
See, yeah, what got it for me was actually the BBC. They started showing esports on BBC Sports on the ticker, and I think there was actually one yesterday.
I didn't know this. What games were they showing?
They were showing FIFA and stuff when the lockdown was all started.
Okay.
They were showing FIFA. Yesterday they were showing League of Legends on the BBC Sports website.
Wow.
So
wow, I didn't know this. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were showing I'm not a big League of Legends fan, but I have played it. I have enjoyed it as well. But again, it's too twitchy. I'm just too slow at it, basically.
Wait, you're an old guy. Look above you, mate.
And yeah, there was like the semi-final or the quarterfinals of the big tournament going on, and they were actually streaming it, and they had the commentators and stuff going on. So it's gaming is now mainstream. Esports has had a breakthrough this year, even before any of this coronavirus stuff. We started seeing it on the big networks in the States, wasn't it? What's the one Disney owned? It's just went out from my head.
Dota?
Oh no, the network, the TV network. What's the big ones in America?
Sports networks?
Yeah. ESPN.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They were on ESPN. So gaming and esports are definitely, it is now mainstream. I think it's been mainstream for years, but actually the actual mainstream is picking up.
Jerome says, I'm assuming, Jerome, you mean how much time did they devote to it? How many, I mean, was this like here's a 5-minute look at FIFA, or was it a couple of real big solid games, or?
No, it was actually proper, here's the full match, here's how's it going. And the League of Legends was you just had to play on the button. It wasn't on the BBC, live BBC, it was on the BBC Sports websites where they were actually advertising it. So
I mean, it's great to see crossover. I really, really hope that they've got a half decent audience for that. I didn't know it was on, so maybe it wasn't promoted as it could have been. But they were probably testing the water, and if they actually got a half decent call out for that, turnout for that, then it's highly possible we'll be seeing more of that. So that's exciting. That's great. The minute it hits mainstream, that's. I mean, when I was a kid, football, soccer literally was on 9 o'clock on a Saturday night for an hour on BBC Grandstand or whatever it was called. I'm not into football, so I can't remember what it was called, but that was the extent of it. It might be a little bit in the afternoon. Then of course the big satellite networks took it on, and it became huge, and it's now the vastly wealthy sport that it is, and that's kind of what needs a breakthrough on esports, taking it away from just the live stream stuff and putting it into a main network. So that's definitely worth looking forward to. That's interesting.
Yeah, I've actually just sent you the link there in the chat there. The BBC now have an esports correspondent, so it just shows you how much it's going, and you can actually watch it. You can actually watch it on catch up here as well. It says in the article you can watch it on the iPlayer.
Okay. We won't do that because that will transgress the BBC license fee, and I likely get taken to prison. So, but I can see what's going on. I mean, absolutely, League of Legends. So this was in Paris in 2018. So I'm not sure whether they were showing a 2018 tournament or not, or whether it was more recent than that. But nonetheless,
that was definitely
that's encouraging.
And they actually give a breakdown on how everything was. So it's really quite interesting.
Yeah, no, that's great to see. Very, very exciting. I mean, esports don't do it for me, but that's not the point. The point is that it's the whole cultural acceptance that gaming is not a back bedroom pursuit of the 13-year-olds alone. It's, you know, it's 50% are male, 50% are female. The average age is mid-30s, and it's just taking a little bit of time, I think, for the rest of the culture per se and the media to understand that, and that's exciting. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Duncan. We're going to have to call everything to a rapid halt because I didn't want to crash into Marchief's show at 9, but we are pretty much done. The only final thing that I wanted to say, and I know it's getting boring because you hear it from me all the time, folks, but we're so close now. Rokk versus Cancer in Children, which the URL is in the banner. I will pop it in the description later. It's an incredibly worthwhile charity. I set a fairly modest target of £1,000, $1,200 as my goal. Thanks to the amazing generosity of people that are largely in my chat tonight, and I love you dearly for it. We are very, very close. We're a couple of £100 away now from getting there. And believe it or not, the Click Sergeant, the charity that we're raising the money for, not many, there was a campaign they put out there to encourage gamers and streamers and content creators to get behind, and sadly not many people took it up, and I think it's a real shame, to the extent that I think we're number 3 on their leaderboard. So, you know, not that I'm looking to compete with them. I mean, they can do what they want, but I just want to get to that target. And if you guys have got a spare $1, anything helps. Please just pop along to tiltify.com at Stadia Rokk and just drop a couple of quid in the tin. That will be amazing, because I'm going to keep boring you about it till we get there, and we're very, very close now. Anyway, Duncan, where can people find you, my friend?
You can find me on Want to Escape on Twitter, and I occasionally do stuff for Stadia Source as well, so you can check out Stadia Source as well.
Brilliant stuff. And you can find me where you're watching me, folks. And if you're not watching me here, then I don't know where you're watching me, but it's a real pleasure that you're watching. And on Twitter at Stadia Rocks. That's all for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see so many people, so many friendly faces, and so many familiar friends. We will be back on Friday evening for a slight variation to Rock Stars at Night. We'll be guestless, and we'll be moving very quickly into the game after doing our intros, because that's the bit everybody loves, and so do we. So there'll be a slight change. And then Sunday mornings, every Sunday, Duncan and I do our Stadia Rocks Live, our kind of light baby version of Rock Around the Clock. Please do join us and tell your friends. Anyone that's thinking of getting Stadia, send them along to us and we'll have a little word. Have a great week. Thank you for joining us, and rock out.